Free yourself from the fetters of this world. Loose your soul from the prison of self. Seize your chance, for it will come to you no more. Oh, my people, you've got to free yourself. Oh, my people, you've got to free yourself. Oh, my people, you've got to free yourself.
Good afternoon. Welcome to our first taped broadcast, Breakfast for Learning show. Today's theme will be springtime, or preparing for a new cycle of productivity. Our topic is starting over. I'd like to welcome my guest and co-host, Carmelita Archer, to the microphone.
Hello, hello.
Nice to meet you.
Yes.
I already know her, but I'm sure it's nice.
We know each other.
Yes. Okay, so our topic today is starting over. We discussed it in our youth group earlier, and now we're carrying it on to the radio forum. We're talking about rebuilding or making new. And in this case, we're talking about going into a new society and shaping our future so that our future societies will be more productive. So once again, it's talking about starting over. Some of the things that we'll be looking at is things that we like to talk about, like what are we abandoning or what systems are we starting over. Okay, we'll also be talking about what will replace the system, and the last thing is how will we be sure our system works, and how will we be sure that we are prepared with a working system. So most of these questions are going to be, they'll be dialogue setting, and I'm going to ask these questions to my guest Carmen, and she'll have time to reflect on it. So I guess my first question is, as we talk about rebuilding, what is it that we are rebuilding? What should we be rebuilding? Especially when we talk about abandoning the system.
Right. The thing about, I know at one point you talked about renewal being the theme, and of course you see there is the word and then there's newel, and that means we're referring to something that was at one time was what was new, and you're establishing that point, that you're going back to a point. So it's important to realize that there was a beginning. There was a beginning, there's always a beginning, and going back to that beginning place and to establish in a new way what it is that you're wanting, whatever it is that you're wanting to do.
I think I get it. I think what I hear you saying is that the emphasis was on the because it was built perfect already, and through time it wore down.
Not necessarily perfect, but regardless to if it was a good, bad, or indifferent, it was new at some point.
Okay.
Whatever point it was new. And when you're renewing and you're rebuilding, you're going back to this point again. And then sometimes when you go back to that beginning point, you're able to maybe retrieve some areas where you may have not done that which you should have been doing. There may have been a point where you dropped the ball.
Okay. So like in this episode, we're talking about society, government. Okay, and a lot of times we like to talk about the word, well, you always hear this a lot, abandoning the system.
Right.
Okay. In this case, systems. I'll look at systems as three things: government, religious systems, and educational systems. These three can make up our societies. And so, if we're talking about like abandoning the system, what does that mean by abandoning the system? Let me just leave it open and walk away from it. What does that mean, abandoning the system? Well, is there a good system and a bad system? What does that mean to you?
It's good that we started off like we did, because it's able to, for one, you need to orient yourself. Orient yourself to where you are. What is the current system that you're speaking of? It's important to reflect on what is the current state of the government, of religion, of your job situation, of your finances, of whatever the case, your physical state. At some point you have to look at where you are, assess yourselves. And so before you can abandon, it's important to recognize where it is that you are. Because once you can see where you are able to orient yourself and to be able to say, I start here, just like you see the kiosk and on the maps. And
you are here, right.
You're able to orient yourself to where you are. And it's important to recognize some things that are surrounding you so that when you begin, when you become new, then you're able to leave that system. If you're leaving that system, it's important to recognize. I mean, the military, we know it. We were trained that not only to fight your enemy, you have to recognize who your enemy is. It's important to know who your enemy is in order to know some things very much almost as if you are among your enemy.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier, I talked about religion and larger entities, but you also made it very personal because you talked about your own health issues. But that is a system that, I might be unhealthy, I might not drink enough water. And for me to rebuild and renew, I have to abandon the system. So I like that you brought that issue up because it's not always about the larger entities of religion.
Yes.
Sometimes it is about the smaller entities of religion, which is how I myself practice. And so if I'm going to abandon any system, it sounds like I should abandon some of the systems I have. First, recognize it. That's the first thing I hear you say. And then what will replace it is the next part of that. What do you think should replace the system?
A lot of times we may have this emotional set where we feel as though, I don't like this. I don't like it here, wherever that place is that we are, whether it be our physical state of being, our mental state of being, a physical state which may be, I don't like that I'm in this room. It's important you may just say, okay, I'm just going to leave this room. But sometimes we have to kind of reflect and say to ourselves, I don't like that I'm in this space, and why? So that you can begin to make those steps toward the space that you would want to be in. I mean, you may have an immediate threat where you may want to just leave a space. And I understand you don't have time to think about, I'm going to think about leaving this room because it stinks in here, But I'm talking about something that is going to last. So not just something temporary or emergent that comes up. I'm saying you're talking about a system like the government. Or if you're talking about the system.
Let's talk about the government. What would you do? Okay, let's say you wanted to abandon the government system we have now, which is capitalist here in the U.S.
Well, you would need
and
to
it's not necessarily evil, or what I mean. It's just how we handle it.
Well, you need to recognize what are some of the issues of the government. The government is a huge entity. So you would have to consider what are some of the aspects of the government that I am concerned with. And I would have to reflect on. I don't like, say, for example, the financial aspects of the government are unfair. And I want to address those things by financially, how will I address the government? What will I do? I'll become more active, become more aware of things that are going on in the government. How would certain laws or certain states of being that are in place, how can you renew? You can't just all of a sudden just decide, I'm just not going to renew my tags, for example, because my tags are due. They ended at the end of March. Somebody might have some tags that are busted, right? And they may have to decide, I don't think it's fair because my state of being is affected by the government and I have to pay taxes, and that's not fair.
Right.
Of course, you have to pay your taxes.
Right.
But you may want to think about, let me look at the current state of affairs. How can I become, if I am unhappy with the government and the control that they have over me financially that I have to pay to renew my tax? What is it that I'm concerned with, and how can I become more involved in that? A renewal is able to take place just in that very thing by you reflecting and becoming educated and becoming more aware of the ways that you can actually impact the government. Because it's one thing for you to just do something that is going to possibly affect it, because it will affect the government if you just don't pay your taxes. But the thing is that it can backlash on you, and you can end up with a ticket.
And will it affect society? I'd say that, like, when you do something by yourself, that's more selfish.
And yes,
but when you're doing something for the right, where it will affect all of society, because it is an unfair practice sometimes.
Yes.
But when you're not just doing it because it affects me, I have to pay my tax. But when you realize that their money might be being wasted.
Yes.
Because again, we're talking about society. We don't, we're not really just talking about the I.
Yes.
We are talking about how the I can be productive in the renewal of society. And I like the steps that you brought up, because you can use these steps for religion, for education, and for government. Recognize what parts of the system might need to be uplifted, rebuilt, or what have you. So you don't necessarily, you only have to abandon something, perhaps, that has been condemned.
Right.
Meaning that it will not be able to function. And so you're going to tear it all the way down and then rebuild it. Okay? So it's not really an abandonment as in this case. It's more of a restructuring tool.
And not necessarily totally disband or break it all the way down. The main key thing, I remember us reflecting on what it was that we would discuss, and I heard re. So when you say re, it's whatever the word that follows it is what you're doing again. So at some point it was new. Mm-hmm. At some point it was whatever it was, established, like you were saying. It was built. If you're rebuilding. So you're going back to that point. You're going back to the point where something was built, established. It was new. And
so what will replace it is a newer and better version of the best products put together, right?
Hopefully, because you can renew, and you can, if it's new again, that doesn't necessarily mean it's better. You would hope that it would be better.
That opens up very well, because the third and last part asks, how should our society act or respond to how prepared the next thing we build is? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because it might not work, like you said. Mm-hmm. But we're talking about things that we would like to work, right? And but how can we be sure for them? How is it, before we go building it, how will we be sure that we have prepared an effective rebuilt anything? How do you know?
And that is what I started off with. Let's go back again to being oriented, realizing where you're starting. If it was something that was old, it was the original new, but now it's old. Because when you're renewing and when you're reestablishing and rebuilding, then you're becoming aware of the fact that there was a beginning that you want to start over for some reason. There's something you need to be aware of some of the things that there's a reason why you want to reestablish, rebuild. So at first, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me a lot of maybe, say, Chinese food. Well, I want to say Chinese food. You could say any particular food, but I'm just saying it for the sake of the fact that whenever I prepare, say, stir fry, it's funny how that dish is so quickly prepared, but it's all of the things that lead up to the actual stir fry.
You're at the preparation.
The preparation time can be extensive, but the actual time that something needs to be done is very quick, and then everybody knows they want their stir fry fresh off the grill, right? So what you would do is the reason why I refer to that is because in the question that you're presenting, I am actually saying that I believe that the same muscle is being utilized. You're going to take some time to prepare for those steps that you're going to take. So there's going to be a need for you to be able to reflect. So when you're reflecting, as, say, an individual, if it's an individual choice that you're making in rebuilding or reestablishing or beginning again, then you're going to take those steps where you're going to have to take some time to think about, where am I? How did I go wrong? How can I begin again? What were some of the things that caused me to not be productive? These are some of the questions you need to take that time. I'm suggesting that we take that time to prepare so that you can put those steps in place, so that once you take that time to actually really talk about the issues and becoming equipping yourself with the information and also especially if you're doing things like unifying and doing things that are outside of yourself, you're going to need to have some dialogue. You're going to have to become involved in dialogue and you have to become educated about some things. There are going to be some things in dialogue. There's going to be people that are maybe an agreement with you at the beginning, but through the dialogue process, there's going to be education that goes on. Because you may have people that know some things about legal issues, say with the government. If you want to make changes in the government, I would advise us to not only just say, oh, I just want to change the government and not know anything about the government, not be established.
Right, being prepared.
Yes.
Right.
So I want to propose in that it takes time. You know, I mean, what would it be like for me to just throw my carrots into my stir fry, my celery, right? Just throw the stalk in there versus taking the time to cleanse it and to take the time to pick the proper celery, carrots, whatever things you would have in your stir fry, and considering those that are going to partake. You know, it takes time.
Yeah, I agree. I like what you're saying. You know, that makes a lot of sense. You know, I'm glad that you came to add, you know, to this dialogue process. And it does take time. I agree with you there. And discourse and dialogue and planning before the action is important for any type of rebuilding. Or any building for that matter, but of course also for the rebuilding.
Yes.
Because you don't have to discard everything, you know what I mean? But I would like to say thank you to Carmen Archer for coming out here this afternoon. Now, I don't know if you guys can hear us in the background. We're in the outside in nature, and it's springtime. So there's a lot of rebuilding going on. Maybe you can hear the birds chirping in the back. I'd also like to thank Eric Dozier and J.B. Eckel for allowing me to use one of their songs off of the Badass CD. You guys hear it, it's our intro song. The whole CD is really good, to tell you the truth. It happens to be our exit song as well. I hope you guys enjoyed this first program, and come on back soon.
Yeah. Free yourself from the fetters of this world. Loose your soul from the prison of self. Seize your chance, for it will come to you no more. Oh, my people, you've got to free yourself. Oh, my people, you've got to free yourself. Oh, my people, you've got to free yourself. I see you down on your hands and knees, sifting through dust, looking for diamonds. Oh, my people, you've got to free yourself. You're searching high and low, from the mountaintop to the valley. You know you won't find them, yeah. Oh, my people, you've got to free yourself. Woo, free yourself from the fetters of this world. Loose your soul from the prison of self. Seize your chance, for it will come to you no more. Come on, help me sing. People, you've got to free yourself. You've got to free yourself, yourself. To free yourself. Oh, my people, you've got to free yourself. oh.